The right person is around the corner. It's closer than you think.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
But your mindset is not there because you're focused on something completely different. You're focused on building your life, which is fair, which is fine. You know what I'm saying? But as I said, we get what we give attention to, and that's just my thing. Welcome to another episode of Dads Divulge. Today we have the panel with us. We're going to get into some serious business. Firstly, we have Uncle Rods. If you don't know, get to know, back by popular demand, may I say. Investment banker, father of 3, husband to 1, and successfully married for 31 years. Then we have a longtime friend, Cara, who runs her own fitness and physio business and is currently studying a master's in physiotherapy. Last but not least, we have my other longtime friend, Dan, who is an IT consultant, property and startup investor. Stu, what are we getting into today, bro?
All right, welcome everyone. Today we're going to get straight into it, and we are talking about, is there a lack of quality partners? So, we always hear it. We always hear there's no decent men out there. We always hear there's no decent women out there. My thing is, these people haven't just got on the rocket and gone into space. They're still out there. So where are they? And are we standing in the right places to even be seeing them? So, Dan, we're going to start with you. What's your take on it?
There are quality men, there are quality women. Where you find them, I don't know. But when you do find them, you're very fortunate. And when you do find them, cherish them. Show them that you're empathetic, that you love them, that you care for them, and all of the rest of it. Be affectionate, be caring, and the rest of it. And then hopefully it flows. But yeah.
And where do you think this issue is coming from? Because you do hear it. Everybody hears it. There's no decent men around. Why do you think women are saying there's no decent men around? Because
they're echoing social media and a lot of things that mediums that come towards them and are like sounds or just off the cuff, hearing it off of somebody else. That hearing it from somebody else is not your own journey. Yeah. You might, in your friend circles or whatever, you might have, suitable suitors. Whereas in another friend circle, there might not be that situation. Maybe you're not going to the right places and all of that. But I do think social media has a big part to play in that. People are essentially retweeting, reposting the same non-ideals. And people are taking on that rhetoric as well. They're all taking it on and they shouldn't be. They're
taking it on blindly and they're not actually experiencing it. It's just something they're just seeing and they're just saying it.
I feel like that's a lot of our generation in general. Relationships aside, I mean, they see something, they just regurgitate it essentially, and they enforce this false reality on themselves when that might not be truly your path.
Okay.
One angle, anyway.
That's one angle. All right, so move on to Cara in the hot seat. She's in the hot seat.
The smoke section.
Fire that way, please. Yeah, that's it. What do you reckon? Is there a lack of quality men? Yes or no? And if you do hear ladies say that, why are they saying it?
I'm very aware that I'm the only female here at the moment. I don't know.
Speak your mind. Speak your mind.
Yeah, feel free.
Quality men, no. I think sometimes it can be harder than we might hope to find somebody who's suitable. So just because somebody's not suitable for you doesn't mean that they're not quality. And I think with men more than women, this is something I've heard from men too, and I've had discussions, women tend more to work with or see and work with potential at an earlier stage than a man, in my experience and the experience of my peers, might be. So what I might see as quality or what I see as potential to be quality might be slightly different to or I might see that earlier on in a situation than a man might see it. So I think that's where sometimes men might come from when they say there's a lack of quality women. In my experience, there's that common thing as well that women love to fall in love with potential, and that's, I think, could definitely be part of the case for some people. I'm not talking personally necessarily.
Can you dive into fall in love with potential bit a little bit? Because that's something I've heard. I think all of us here.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the ideal, I was reading something aside, not even to do with this today, about, you know, when you're not with somebody anymore, it's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to still be in love with that person. It's okay to be in love with the idea of what you thought that might be, even though actually, if you look at the situation you were in, that's not what you were in, but you were hoping for it to be something else. And I think the nature of a woman, a lot of women, obviously, it can't always be blanket, is to kind of take something and develop it, or, you know, make it into something. And I think a lot of the time, what we can do is see somebody, know they're not perfect, none of us are, but are willing to accept certain things. And for example, you might know somebody in the beginning and think, you know, I'm not too keen on that. It's like the red flag thing. I'm not too keen on that, but I can work with it. Whereas I think by nature, men tend to be more, whether this is negative or positive, practical and black and white, tend not to blur things. So they tend to see what's there in front of them. That's not bad. Actually, sometimes that can be quite good. This is the situation. Can I deal with it? Yes or no, rather than maybe let me give it a try anyway. And I think that's where there's some kind of disconnect sometimes. Women tend to be like, oh, I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to go through, follow with the heart. Men, a lot of the time, obviously this isn't blanket before the feminist army come for me.
Yeah, don't get Dave Chappelle.
More, yeah. I like being cancelled. Anyway, no, but tend to see a true picture of what it is without romanticizing. I think I've been guilty of that in the past as well. Like, that's all right, when actually, no, that's not all right. And that's, you know, probably move on.
So, Uncle Rods, what's your take on this?
I think both points that Dan and Cara made absolutely are valid. But my take on this is much wider, and it is more to do with the fact that if we think how men and women were attracted today versus 100 years versus 200 years ago, we would all agree that we see differences. We see differences for very real reasons. Our parents, my parents, they only could check the people in their little town where they came from. They didn't go from country to country. And it leads me to the point that today's generation, younger generation, have the benefit. I say benefit is both a curse and a benefit of choice. You can
Options.
socially, you can check whoever you want, right? You can go virtually wherever you want. And by virtue of this little bugger, you can have contact with anybody you want. Now, choice is not necessarily always a good thing. I'm just going to talk about men for a second. Men can look at a woman and say, I don't like this about her, so I'm going to swipe her. I don't know where it's left or right because I've never been on it, but I know you swipe it one way, right? So it's virtue of the mobile phone. We have the option to swipe left or right, whether we like a look of a woman or don't like a woman, don't like the look of her. So we are now got down to a stage where we don't know her. We don't know what she sounds like. We don't know what her morals are. Maybe they don't even care, but purely just on her looks. So we have that to contend with. And this is not just about men. I'm sure women do the same thing. But we're also coming to an age where women's rights have come to the forefront, and rightly so. But that also has brought its problems. We now have, and we talked about it previously, when women now want to be the same as men. Now, we know we ain't exactly the same. We're never going to be the same. But that has brought problems. Now, does that bring contention between men and women? Of course it does. So you put it all in this mix, right? We've got technological advances. We've got massive social change. We've got massive opportunities for both sexes, right? Of course, there's going to now be this real juxtaposition as to a good man versus a good woman. We've made it much, much harder for ourselves. Everybody, as I call it, the instant generation, both men and women, I want success. Success means I can't get married, I can't get hitched before I've done this, I've done that, I've got the car, I've got the house, I've done that. Whereas obviously generations before, you never expected that to do it by yourself. You expected, let me find my life partner and we build together. So there are some real social reasons why finding a partner now is much harder. And it's not because there's no good man or there's no good woman. Definitely not, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, we've seen
absolutely
it's
agree.
like something I've said to Ryan before is like, the relationship is a two-player sport.
Absolutely.
And I feel like actually, you've touched on it a bit just now. The whole idea of success is sometimes looking at it from a very individual lens. There's some men that probably don't want to date a woman unless they're set up in the right way. And there's probably some women out there who've probably said, you know what, I've got to have X, Y, and Z before I even meet a man. And actually, because I've achieved that, I can't even be speaking to a man who hasn't got those things. So I feel like now the caliber of partner is now linked to, unfortunately, like material things. And actually that has nothing to do with, like I said, someone's integrity, what their morals are like, none of those things. Like I said, I don't think that all of a sudden all the good men have got married and actually what's left is just the scraps. And the same thing I don't think for the women. I don't think the women have just all got married off and now there's this random women left. Like, I just don't think that's the case. I think what people are looking for, it's actually right in front of them. My thing, I've always said it to a lot of people. I think their perfect partner. Okay, I'll take perfect partner away because a lot of people don't like that phrase. I feel like the right person for you, more time than not, is actually right in front of you. I feel like they're a close proximity away. They could even be in disguise as a friend, but we're not looking at that because they're thinking they're a friend and therefore, no, it's just never going to work. Actually, I reckon that for those who do keep, decent friends of the opposite sex, I think you'd find probably they even might have most of the qualities that you'd probably, I think that. I'm not saying it's 100% truth, but my thing is that everyone feels like there is a perfect version of the right person out there. And actually, there's something out there which is for you. And it's actually, I don't think it's that far away from you. This whole concept that is so far away and that there's none left. It feels strange to say that.
It comes back to what Uncle Rodney was saying about choice. It's like, I compare it to, when you go to a restaurant and there's so much on the menu, you don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
You'll go to a Chinese restaurant and they serve Malaysian, Thai, everything. And you're just like, you know what? Let's go somewhere else because this is just too much. Yeah. And you cannot choose. And I go back to and it wasn't that long ago when me and my missus started talking. My thing was, we didn't have access to millions of girls and whatnot. So my thing was, let me rob the bank and get out of there straight away. As soon as I saw something that was decent, she might not tick every single box that I had in my head, but I thought, you know what? She ticked the boxes, the most important boxes for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, although my missus, I believe, is a beautiful woman, it wasn't that initially. It was, the intangibles, the honesty, the integrity, the character, which I don't think is focused on enough nowadays. Everyone has got this picture in their head of, I need someone who's this. I need him to be 6'4" with a six-pack and drives this. And before they even get to the other part, so how many people even get through that first stage to even show what kind of person they are? Not many, because they don't pass the first test.
They're not getting there.
Nobody's getting there.
Stuart touched on it, right? It is. It's not only things like what materials you've got to bring. I know people who said they're not checking nobody if they ain't got a degree. Now, not if they haven't got a good job, right? They say, because I am a graduate, because I've got a master's, I want somebody of equal status. So my point of view was, so does that mean with somebody without a degree hasn't got the intelligence, right? But that was their stance. That was clearly their stance. So again, it comes down to people, they're almost trying to make a menu of what a perfect partner is.
There's no such thing. There is no such thing.
I totally agree. Why do I say opposites attract? If that was the case, nobody in their right mind would ever say, I want somebody who's totally opposite to me in X, Y, Z, right? That just wouldn't work. But that's not the way human beings operate.
What I would say though, just quickly, whilst I think to me that's wild, and possibly by the way you said it to you, that's like kind of off the wall comment to make. I think it's good that people are open about these things, because too much of what happens is people don't state their non-negotiables, or they don't stick to them at the beginning, and then later on down the line that becomes a sticking point. To me, also, with that situation, whether I had a degree or not, I would find that line of thinking slightly odd, and probably would want to even stay away from somebody like that.
That is a red flag in itself.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, whilst it's not my, it wouldn't be, I would find that odd. I'm glad that people are able to be that honest about certain things, whether it's about not having a degree, whether it's about only dating people from, certain socioeconomic group, or only people who have a certain job or earning a certain type of money. Make these things clear, because then I can cut, Do you know
I'm
what
going to
I
say
mean?
that there's a double-edged sword to that one. And I could say that having experienced it, also touching and echoing both your points earlier and merging them together. So there's one aspect of, do you tap out when certain things, so basically your criteria is not met or whatever. In my scenario, I've probably given more of a chance than I should have. And it's like my presumptions on the onset of situations, I should have basically gone with my gut and tapped out sooner. Does that make sense? As opposed to hanging in there, getting cut dry, getting them just basically being anchored and feeling like pressures on your shoulder now and all of these kinds of things, where it's just like you should have just gone with, in hindsight, what was more of a sensible situation, more of a sensible decision, and just kind of moved along, as opposed to staying in a situation that doesn't actually make sense. So it's like I should have attended to my non-negotiables sooner than later.
Yeah,
and then
it brings it. Sorry.
No, sorry, go on. Yep.
But it brings into question then what we're calling non-negotiables.
Exactly.
Stu made the point earlier on that, do we look to somebody's character and their morals and their values, or do we look to the fact that, all right, he's earning £10,000 more than me this year, right? But you say no, but that's what some people are calling their intangibles. If he hasn't, it's one thing to say, in my humble opinion, if somebody, what is an intangible is I need ambition, I need drive, I need somebody to have some get up and go. That I connect. I see and understand. Whether that person is at where they need to be is a different thing. And then it goes back to, are we prepared to build? Yeah. Right? Or do we just want to be separate mountains that have a kind of bridge between us, right? Rather than form one huge mountain together.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you know what I think it is, Unks, as well? I think a lot of these people that have these intangibles didn't have them before.
Of course.
And as Dan said, don't get me twisted, there's probably a small group of men and women who've had these kind of intangibles for time. But it's like social media has forced these intangibles on us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like tying into what Uncle Rog just said there is, with that non-negotiable list, you shouldn't have that plastered on your head on the onset of meeting someone, for example. I mean, imagine being in a bar, somebody comes over to you and you're just like, no, and walk away. It's not like that when you're trying to get to know someone, is it? It takes a bit of time to build. It takes a bit of time to fact find and, really dig into this person. I want to know your character. I want to know how you treat people, your family, there's a whole heap of things that come into a person. You're not just taking on like one set structure in front of you, if that makes sense. This non-negotiable idea is terrible. I
know men and women who are that one-dimensional. If let's say they got 5 or 6 intangibles, if you are on that, if you got one of those, that it doesn't matter that the rest, they're not going forward. They are that cutthroat. And then they wonder why they're by themselves for the last 20 years. How do you build with somebody like that? You don't. That's the point. And that's why we're having this discussion, right? Yeah, you should run. That is the red flag.
Some of those intangibles, though, 5 seconds away from being obsolete. All these things which are superficial. Right.
Absolutely.
Things which are, looks can go, car can just go. Like those things are obsolete. But the things that are things which really should connect you with somebody, someone's heart, someone's kind of like soul and stuff like that.
Yeah, the building
For the
factors.
most part, you know, short of a catastrophic like life event, they're kind of who they are. So actually, that's what you should be looking through. You should almost be looking through someone and saying like, is this person like this? You know,
Yeah,
my thing is actually when you're saying lack of quality, if you then think about it again, if we look at someone's heart, someone's soul, are you saying really?
That's real quality, though. That is where the real quality lies.
The quality that you need. That's what I'm saying. I think a lot of things can be deemed obsolete within 5 seconds if you really want them to be. You know, not someone's spirit. You know, that's what that means a lot to some people. And actually, if I think about it, the people that I know who have more of a spiritual connection and actually want that, you know, they really need that with somebody. They're the ones that are really saying, you know what, I can't find the right person. And actually, I believe them to a certain extent because they're not looking at what's here. They're looking
Deeper.
at this and they're looking in here. You know? And those are the people that are like, do you know what, I'm really finding it tough. I've got no one to even, I can't even get on the same like vibrations of someone. You know, that's big for some people. Cara, this is specifically for you. As a representative for the
No.
Smoke section.
I'm not a representative for any group apart from
Naturally
myself.
Naturally you are.
we're only messing. Yeah? So
Go on.
look, you know, when you hear, if you have heard, you know, ladies or men say these things, you know, do you take it upon yourself to kind of challenge what is it they're looking for? You know, do you kind of call people out and say, do you know what? Actually, this person's not for you. Those last 3 people you've met, or those 3 people that you've, you know, leaned towards, they almost actually replicas of each other. You know, actually, this person isn't for you. This type of man isn't for you. This type of woman isn't for you. This type. Because I feel like there is something there around. You know, we always say sometimes we shouldn't listen to all of our friends. You know, we shouldn't. You know, we should take it. She's taken here what we want to go and do, and sometimes friends get in the way. But you know what? If you do have a close friend or close family member, sometimes they know you quite well. Let's not take that away. So actually, are we actually causing problems for our friends sometimes by not actually saying, do you know what? See this person? No, they're not actually for you, and it's from a genuine place. I'm not talking not talking the ones where like they just want you to stay single with them. I'm talking about they generally say this person's not for you.
I think for me, I've learned over the years, that actually people don't necessarily want to hear what you have to say. And most times people are going to do exactly what they want to do regardless. They might use you as a soundboard and they might hope, you know, that you'll give them what they want to hear. But even when you do sometimes, they don't follow through with the advice they've been given, or eventually they'll stop asking you because
you're giving them the right advice.
they know you're giving them the right advice, and they know that they're not able to, for whatever reason, take that advice on board and action it. If people ask me, I'll give them the opinion. I'm not at the stage of my life where I'm offering up my opinions, especially as I would say as a single person, because I know what people can be like when they're in their feelings. It's like, well, what does she know? She's single, or do you know what I mean? And it's for me, I know where my intentions are. Yeah. They probably do, but I'm not going to open up myself for that. If people want to come and talk to me, of course, they know. Probably, I think most of my friends would describe me as very non-judgmental when it comes to those things, and somebody who they can talk to if they need to. Sometimes people don't want to either. They don't want to hear it. They will suffer in silence. And many a time I've seen this from people. It's not till after the fact that you're hearing the nonsense that they've been going through, because they know deep down that's not for them, and they're not ready to leave the situation yet, or they're not ready to address whatever is making them behave in that way, or them choose those men. Or I've had very similar situations with friends recently like that. And when they want to talk, I'm all ears. And when they want advice, you know, I can give it to them. But until people are ready to actually action it, I think now I'm past that point of, you know, kind of offering up, or don't you think? Clearly they don't think, or they don't want to hear it because they know me. I'm going to give them the real. So.
I think it comes back to as well understanding yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, when you're surrounded by your friends and family, you get told you're an amazing person, you're this, you're that, you're this. But if you don't understand yourself and who you are as a person and what your potential partner may want in that person, you're kind of walking down a blind alley, because you're listening to all these people tell you how good of a person you are, which you may be, don't get me wrong. But maybe in your head, you've kind of pushed that self-improvement to the side and just thought, you know what, I'm perfect, I'm good, but everyone else around me doesn't seem to be up to my standard. But you haven't done that self-reflection to understand, well, you know what, I've got this to work on, I've got that to work on, this could be better, so that I could potentially attract the kind of person that I want.
So let's take that point, Rye, about people evaluating themselves, and as Dan said, having the discipline to do the right thing. I will say my bane of contention, but let's just talk about social media.
Yeah.
People say, how many likes have you got? How many followers have you got? Right? Because if I've got 1 million followers, I'm a better ass than you, because you've only got 200,000, right? So what am I doing with somebody who's only got 200,000 and I've got 1 million followers?
Because you can use that one in the bank.
No, but isn't this what people
They do.
take
They
as
do.
value now? They take as value.
Status and stuff.
I am an influencer. I'm a mover and a shaker. And who are you? Sorry?
I promise you, they're barely moving.
Yeah, but the point being is that we can't ignore the effects social media has on our psyche and how it's ingrained into our society. And the topic that we are talking about is like, we can't just look at it on one dimensional and say, you know, people should do this, should do that. I don't disagree with anything that's been said, but the pressures and the influences that are on, especially the younger generation who've grown up with it, is different for me. I didn't grow up with these things, so it's easy for me to ignore. But for those who've grown up and they're no different, I wouldn't say it's not impossible. That's the wrong word, but it's really hard, right? Because when I hear people say they're getting abused online, I'm like, in my stupid head, turn the damn thing off. What's the problem, right? That's because I'm not ingrained in this thing, but they are. Right, and so this topic that we're talking about is is there good partners out there? So the next extension is, and how do you find them? And that's really, I mean, we say there's good people out there, and I agree with each and every one of you, there is. But the question is then, how do you access them? Because it's not like we used to go down night moves like we used to.
You go to the dance.
Granaries and that.
Exactly. It was easy.
Oh, for granaries.
You were there. It's 3 or 4 places. Exactly.
You don't want to go Shoreditch again, fam.
No, tell me. But the point being is that, again, it goes back to my point. Choices. We have got such an open-ended number of choices, which makes it almost impossible to say, so where's my kind of person? So then I think that leads to people then taking on these, I'm going to call them false values. Let's call them weak values, right? And all of a sudden, you know, maybe I do want to go down Shoreditch because that's where I think the movers and the shakers are. That's where the people who've got more than 200 followers go. So I will take that as a stupid way of that's the kind of people I want to be with. And of course, they aesthetically have to look right. But the point being is that the points that Stuart and all of you were making earlier in terms of those core values, I mean, society just doesn't push that, doesn't pump it. So unless it's going to come from your home, and like my mum and dad just say, everything comes from the home, very difficult to think that they're going to get any kind of influence outside of the 4 walls of their house. You know,
It's the discipline again. It is the discipline again, because if you're disciplined enough to know that social media is a facade, it's not real, and we are the ones who make it is what we give it the power that it has, and everyone's feeding into it on top of that, but they don't know when to switch it off or how to switch it off. I mean, even taking a week's break from social media, see what you do with yourself in your day to day. It's important to kind of just separate the two, or even just switch off your notifications and just stay away from it. Because look how much people pick up their phones even. If you're not even disciplined enough to do that, what makes you think you're going to be able to move along with your life and not let it affect you so much, or let it change or tap into your perception of what is a perfect partner, or any of these ideals that our generation seems to be like listing down? And if you don't meet any of that, well, you're not it. But nobody knows what it is that they're trying to find, that perfect ideal.
With social media as well, just to agree basically with what you're saying, is it's all about...
That's it. Agreeing.
Well, no, it's all about the outside view, what other people think of you, and doesn't leave a lot of time to really concern yourself with what you think of yourself.
Yeah.
And so that in terms of like being introspective and what Ryan was saying is about who you are as a person, and have you had time to look at yourself or perceiving yourself as this perfect being or finished article, when actually all we're looking for, and I say we loosely, when we use social media, how many people, who liked it, why have they liked it, and how am I appearing to everybody else, rather than how am I appearing to myself. And we all know when we think about it, is that authenticity that makes you who you are and makes you able to form these true relationships going forward. Whereas if you're constantly focused on what's going on outside of that, how can you possibly be properly happy? And then if you're not properly happy, that does make it kind of more difficult to kind of forge these proper relationships, in my opinion. So focused on what's going on outside of yourself.
It's like a toxic hamster wheel, social media is. It's like it gives everyone this point of view that they haven't even gained through their own knowledge and experience. It's just like men think women want this. So men are like, you know, if I'm not doing certain things, if I'm not earning this kind of money, if I don't dress a certain way, if I'm not 6'4", if I haven't got a six pack, then no woman's going to want me, which is false. Then women on the other side, you know, if I don't have a plastic breast and a plastic bum and I'm not this shape, then no man is going to take me on and whatnot. And it's absolutely false. And it's got us all thinking that we want something that we actually don't want.
And I think the sad thing with that is there must be some people out there, both men and women, who feel like, you know, they've hit a bit of bad luck with partners, and then they resort to what everyone else is doing. And they don't realize that in that process of moving from being unique and being their own person, that actually made them really attractive and really, do you know what, a one and out type person, right? This is the person I really need to be with. They end up transforming into the rest. And then they wonder why it kind of goes a bit wrong. So I just go
on the other end of that spectrum, you get people who are like, I've done it this long and I've been myself for this long. I'm not now gonna, and this is part of it as well, I'm not now gonna settle for some. And I think that's where I would probably put myself. I've, you know, I've a great life, like in terms of, you know,
the things that make you happy, essentially.
But
I believe that's what you should be doing.
And you meet somebody on the way who likes to do the things X, Y, and Z. I think it can be very difficult, especially, so bringing it back to what Uncle Rodney was saying earlier on about, you know, the way the world has changed. I'm able to have a great life because women work full-time jobs in the same way that men do now. So I can fund that. And I don't have to worry about, you know, I need to get married or I need to find a partner to enable me to be able to have this thing. I don't need that person. So I think, you know, good or bad, however you see it, I have been reluctant to let go of my lifestyle and what I do to enjoy myself for anything that's sort of less than what I want. And that's not saying that I'm, you know, searching for somebody who's a finished article, perfect. I'm none of those things. But I'm definitely not going to have somebody who's going to treat me badly. I'm definitely not going to have, you know, mediocre or substandard when I know what I'm doing by myself and what I can offer to a union. So I think there's also that side of it, like people who are like, well, actually, I'm not in a position where I need to just take anything or accept any nonsense. And like you said, other people who are so desperate to be in a relationship, and I don't say that negatively, we're all different, that they will succumb to the pressures of what society is kind of pushing on us. I also think that from a woman's perspective, how I often see it is that I've said this to your wife, right, so many times, that he was smart enough at a very young age to be able to see those qualities.
I told you, I went in and I robbed the bank and I got out quickly.
And you know what?
He's ahead of his time, I'm telling you.
Yeah, 100%. And it's something that I've always really kind of, you know, admired really, and it's not something that I've seen a lot of it with my peers and with my friends. People have had partners, girlfriends, whatever, over the years, and then they go, and then, you know, whatever, people live their young life, which isn't bad or good necessarily, but to have that foresight, obviously she's one of my closest friends, I think she's amazing, but to have that foresight at such a young age and to think about those qualities, most of my friends, male friends at that time, were thinking about more of the physical things, and actually even the females at that time were not necessarily, some of them were, but it was like...
It wasn't at the extent it was now.
And much more of a superficial kind of thing to what we would be looking at now in a partner. So in terms of being nobody on the market, no, I don't think it's true, but I do think there are some people who have done what you guys have done, and I love the term, robbed the bank and got out.
When I was younger, I didn't think too much into what I was doing. Maybe subconsciously I was taking those actions, but I didn't give it much thought. It was just like, it was a no-brainer to me. Here's a good girl here. She is ticking so many boxes. She's doing completely opposite to what I see all these other girls are doing. So I'm going this way.
Absolutely.
And you know what? At that time, I can't say I use my Uncle Rodney as an example, but as I've got older and things, you know, as you get older, kids get involved and things start to get a bit harder. I've looked at my Uncle Rodney and I've looked at what he's built, and I've said, do you know what? I want that. So yeah. When I'm going through certain things and I'm battling with myself and I'm thinking, this relationship shit is hard.
Hard. Doesn't matter what relationship it is.
Hard. Like, it's a graft. It's a proper graft. And I'm like, you know, what would my Uncle Rodney do? Do I want to get to that position? Do I want to get to his stage? Do I want to look back and say, oh, you know what? I put in a decent amount of work and look what I've got out of it. And I say, yeah, to be honest with you. But I mean, social media does play a part. I looked around, and as I said, I'm not saying I couldn't do better or my missus couldn't do better, but there weren't a whole load of options. There weren't.
No, nobody knows what better is. It's only when you start looking.
Back then, people showed their real self. So it was easy to tell what a girl was back then.
Yeah. See, the perseverance was different. I think the tolerance... was different. And for sure, and I think we've said it a bit earlier, but what if there was any, you know, superficial tendencies, right? It was at a far lower scale. I think it was women saying, does he drive? That might have been a bit of a boost for a lot of guys to say, you know, there's some guys that had peds, all good. But some guys, for them to go and drive now...
In Kent, that's all they wanted.
I think when you get a car for the first time, you're kind of thinking, yeah, like, you can get about a bit. But again, I think that was more you developed a little bit. It might be something as silly as a car. Okay, I can get around now. So actually, you can work somewhere different. Or actually, do you know what? You can take on the later shift so you ain't got to get a night shift home. Those type of things. So if there was a superficial thing, it was
very little, minor.
I don't think
the levels have changed.
It was self-developed, wasn't it? I mean, me getting a car didn't make me feel like I could get any more girls. It just made me really happy.
Yeah.
Right? It made me really
and then
happy.
you radiate.
Listen.
Right.
I found out how superficial the world was when I went to university. And I wasn't really, like, I'm not a forward type person anyway. I'm quite reserved in my demeanor. But when I tell you, I remember, you know about Bicester Village, all of these kind of places. And you're just thinking, you can get a bit of drip a bit cheaper, and you can, you know, so before like certain raves and events, everyone's trying to get the best clobber, everyone's trying to look nice, everyone's trying to do this and that, brands, this. And then I used to see one of my good friends. He used to have this one rope belt, and I kid you not, this guy, like, he wasn't doing up drip, he wasn't doing up what everyone else was doing. He just looked like, you know, just standard. Like, it's still neat in that, but I mean, he could have put in a bit of effort. But anyhow, this guy used to clean up all the time, and that's just how it was, because he wasn't doing the status quo. He was just being him, authentic, real.
No, there's that part of it where I said to my missus the other day, you know, we have to pat ourselves on the back, because what we've done
100%.
up until now is not easy. And when you're in a relationship, sometimes you're just getting on with it. You're not really looking outside and thinking, what have I done? What have I really done? It's, to be honest, in the grand scheme of things, it's been quite easy, really. It's been hard, but it's been easy. Yeah. And
you guys make it look easy, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But I have to be
100%.
honest with myself, and I have to understand, just because I'm in a good relationship doesn't mean I'll go to anyone and say, yeah, this stuff is easy, you know, get with anyone. Like, because I have to understand where we are right now. If I was on the dating scene right now, I doubt I would be interested in getting with anyone right now, from what I see.
When I tell you, I was very happy. And my sister used to tell me all the time, she said, look, you just jumped out of something, just do you. Focus on you. And when I tell you, that was probably the best part of anything. Just doing me, finding myself again, not worrying about pleasing a suitor or anything of that nature, just worrying about my own mental health, my own mind, my own physical fitness, my own like finances, my own even ventures and all of that kind of stuff. I started building myself and I realized, I was like, with all this time, look how much I've accomplished in a short space of time. So imagine if a partner now entered, which I do have now, she's very lovely, but you know, a partner that can now enter and add value and build with you. That's what I'm more on the verge of getting towards, as opposed to this whole, like, oh yeah, you got to do this and be the perfect somebody or someone you don't even know yet.
Do you know
You
what
can't do that.
Developing yourself into quality.
Yeah, develop yourself.
Must attract quality. That's what.
And then,
there you go.
and then you technically have your pick. You have your pick when you're at this point,
looking for that
in a
in you,
sense.
aren't they, though? Like you said,
Exactly.
you're looking for somebody of a certain quality, but whilst you're building on yourself, you're actually becoming that desirable. Not that you're doing it for everybody else, but that is what people are going to be attracted to. Somebody who is doing the right things for themselves.
Double-edged sword also.
Go on.
The reason I say that is because when I think of people who have, let me just put it like a little custom demographic in there, that somebody who's probably not attended to all the relationships aspects of their life, they're just on building, they get into their mid-30s now, and now they think, oh, I need a partner, I want kids, I want this, I want that. They haven't attended to those things earlier, which even I almost fell victim of, because I was literally on this, I might just be alone for now and just kind of, but then, you know, like through your journey, somebody really might just end up on your, and join you, and then you can go from there. But what I was going to say is, how do you then trust someone to now come and build with you at that point when you've really built yourself up? Like how?
Well, that's the point. You've made a choice, right?
Forrest said it as well.
It's either you look to at an early stage when basically you've got nothing and you build together, or like Kara's done, like you did a bit, Dan, is that you build yourself. Now, then there is a risk. Is somebody coming in to be genuine, or are they coming to say, boy, look what he or she's got?
And how do you test that out now? How do you test that out?
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily
Genuine.
always a choice, though, because for me, I am
Agreed.
where I am.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
People have said, I don't understand why you're single. And I'm like, it just happens to be that way.
Yeah.
It's not that but I cannot prioritize looking for a partner over doing
Agreed.
life, because like Danny said,
Yeah.
all those moments that you do, they make up your life. So if it's not my first choice that I would, die alone with no kids by a long shot. If I had a choice, I would have been, in a completely different situation by now to the one I'm in. But I'm not. It hasn't been my choice. I'm very social, probably the most social person that I actually know. And it's not just like one type of person or one type of place that I go to. Go for it.
So, Cara, on that point, can I just ask something?
Yeah.
And it's to everybody, but probably more mainly to you.
Yeah.
Ryan, you said something, and I watch First Dates.
I watched that yesterday.
I watched
Hilarious.
First Dates, and something Ryan said earlier when he said, like, if he, was on the scene now, he'd find it incredibly difficult to find somebody. And I watch First Dates, and I think, thank God.
Yes.
Because I just don't understand. I look at two people on there, and I think, oh yeah, she's into him, he's into her. This is going places. And then when they come to talk afterwards,
Nope.
she's telling him, nah, man, he's like, he's 3 inches too short, or he's this or that, or he's saying that, nah, she's not. And this guy was smiling and laughing with her.
Enjoying himself.
Wow, is this how people deceive each other?
Yeah, very much so.
There's a
Is this
lot
how
of
they do
deceit
it?
going on
Very
out
much
there.
so.
So what do you do? What do you do?
You keep
You
trying.
say exactly, or you
have to
say,
have
"Do
a
you know
thick skin."
what? Tomorrow I've got plans with my girls, or tomorrow I'm going to a brunch," and that's how your life is if you're
Yeah.
single and on the dating thing. For me, just to round up that point, is that I would choose a lot of things differently if I had complete autonomy over my life, but I don't.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
am determined to do is have an amazing life regardless. So whether or not that happens with or without a partner, the said number of kids that I've got in my head, all of those things that you have on your mood board in your head, there are several different pictures for me of what that might look like going forward. And
Yeah.
yes, of course, I'm 34 next month. I would have liked to have done certain things earlier on in life. They haven't happened. I haven't ruled them out completely.
Yeah.
But for me, it would be disastrous if, because one aspect or two aspects don't fall into place how I planned or wanted them, that I wouldn't have an amazing life. So I think it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm choosing to have to have a partner. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But whilst I don't know I have one, I'm gonna have fun at the same time,
Yeah.
because I ain't
You
really-
should. You're doing what you should be doing, essentially, because in hindsight, you can't pick any of these things. Just like you said, you can't pick any of these things. In hindsight, if I was like, the old, like literally when I was going to university, 2010, and it was literally like, okay, you might find your life partner at university. 3-4 years that you're at university, you're thinking, when I graduate, I might have a wife already, or a situation of this nature. And then what happens after that? You start popping kids. Maybe you're 25 at this point, married and kids at 25, and then move on. Everyone had this in their mind. Again, this was a social norm at the time, but reality is,
Changed massively.
we're all dipping into 30s. That's not the truth.
My thing is, I believe we get in life what we give attention to, or what we put effort into.
Absolutely.
I can speak from my circle of friends, who are amazing people.
Carl.
They have probably, and I've said this to them, they have probably had multiple chances to secure the bag when it comes to a woman.
Yeah.
So they they haven't, but they could never come to me and say, there's no good women out there, because I've seen there are, and you've encountered them, but you haven't put the importance on relationship at that stage of your life. And that's fine. That's fine, because at my stage, the stage I am now, I've been with my missus for 16 years. I've got 4 kids.
Come on.
That's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And although everyone says it's goals, it's not goals for everyone. The reality of it is, my reality is that my day-to-day is very, very difficult. I know everyone has their thing going on, but I look at people like Danny sometimes and think, I wish I could get some free time to work on my goals a little bit more. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's not that easy.
I would. No, but this is what it is, though. It is because you're bogged down with your day-to-day, but the life of a single person, sometimes I might be thinking, if I could just get a day to myself, just to tick off my own to-do list. If I could just get some free time to do. And there's pros and cons to being in a relationship and not being in a relationship. But I think at the end of the day, you get what you give the most attention to. And as I said, there's people past. I think someone said it at the start, that I think it was Danny who said, the right person, or Stuart, the right person is around the corner. It's closer than you think.
Oh wait,
But you're not. Your mindset is not there, because you're focused on something completely different. You're focused on building your life, which is fair, which is fine. You know what I'm saying? But as I said, we get what we give attention to, and that's just my thing.
No, absolutely agree. And to touch into Ryan's point and to echo it, sorry guys. The one thing I will say, and in one of my friend circles, we echo this all the time. Our timelines are different. What's for Stu is not for Cara. What's for Ryan is not for Uncle Rods. What's for all of us is not for, you know what I mean? All the way around. We are all unique individuals on this planet. We all have different destinations. We all have different wants, needs, all sorts. We are all wired so differently. But another adage is, like, even now that I'm in a relationship, when I tell you I was really doing what Kari was doing, I was literally just enjoying myself. Like, I literally even almost had a timetable like a social timetable in a sense. Like I could even say Sunday was guaranteed she should have been them. I'm sitting down, we're having a little tea, we're just relaxing, talking up, chopping up, talking ideas, talking different things. And then we go home, we start the week of work, or we're going to brunches on a Saturday, all of that kind of stuff. But then the right person who showed me why they're the right person then came in, if that makes sense. And again, it's very private because it's not very, like, it's more in the sense of that person really showed me. It's not none of this social media type stuff. It's like the person really showing me, really appreciating me. So then I too cherish that person and put the effort in, because you know what I'm like, right, as well. Like, I think maybe Stu might know too. Shamo. Listen, for the right person, you will do these things though. So when Cara, for example, you will do that same situation when you'll find that along your happy path. You're on a happy path, and you'll find that along your way as well.
My thing is, you have to be ready to receive it as well, though. So don't discount that actually. Like I said, the person could be around the corner for you. So actually, I think if you're developing yourself and you're trying to make yourself quality so that you attract quality, tomorrow might actually be your day. But if you live in the life of actually, you know what, it's not really working out for me. And then because of that, you're kind of dropping your guard. You're not even putting your best self on display.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think sometimes when things don't go so right, you then think it's game over. So therefore, the energy you're putting out to somebody else who actually might be Mr. Right or Mrs. Right,
you've lost them.
They're looking at you like, that's not for me, and that's all because you've not presented yourself from the best.
Absolutely agree with this.
You know, and I think another thing I was gonna say as well. So Uncle Rod, you spoke about, you know what, back in your, it's easy for you to kind of discount the social media thing because back in your heyday, not so long ago,
It's only yesterday.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I had to add that in. But my thing actually, is there anything, because things are so different, is there anything we can learn? What was quality for you back then?
Big question.
Because you've been married many years, right? So actually, if you can think about it, what was deemed quality? And I'm not saying actually what was the general consensus of what quality was for men and what women at that age, but for you, what was quality for you? And what was you looking for? Because like I said, those things weren't there. The toys weren't there at the time. So
no, but for me, that's very easy for me to answer because I found it and still have it today in my wife. So what was I looking for? First of all, I wanted somebody that I could communicate with, that I could just talk to and talk to me. And I found that in her when we was at college, and we had very, if not identical, views on what I call the big things in life. On children, raising children, family, our parents. And we were so fortunate. My wife is Nigerian, I'm St. Lucian, but our parents at that time should not have got on. Because African and West Indian back then, it was a bit of a no-no, right? But my in-laws and my parents got on like a house on fire. And so I had all these signs that were, this is 110% the right woman for me. And how I've described finding my wife, it was simply the best decision I've ever made, bar none. Right? So for me, Stu, it was really that simple. She had all the qualities that I was looking for in terms of, I was a bit of a romantic, still am, right? In terms of, I want my wife to want to think about this and, be kind and be generous and be loving. And she's all that in abundance. So, I do feel for the later generations, all of those things that social media has put on them in terms of this is what you should want. I feel for them because it's really difficult for them to completely ignore it. And so even those who ignore it to 90%, that means 10% of them has been infiltrated by it. Even those who are really good. So they really have my sympathy. I don't have the answer as to what we can do about it, apart from it goes back to the good old foundations. It's about family. It's about your mum and your dad, right? Not pumping into you, but reinforcing what you as a young boy should look for in a wife, or you as a young girl, what you should look for in a man. And don't sell yourself short. I would never attest to that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you don't be open and helpful and forgiving, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you think me at 19 was the finished article. Far from it. And if my wife wasn't a forgiving person and somebody, not so forgiving because I didn't do anything bad, but if she wasn't somebody that was patient and willing to put the effort in, really kind of the things that Cara talked about at the beginning of this talk, then I wouldn't be who I am. That's for sure.
Would you say you molded each other?
100%. The longer you stay together, she rubs off on me, I rub off on her. There are definite things I can say that she would have not have done that 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And she's much better for it, and equally with me, right? And sometimes I think to myself, I know this may sound a little bit cheesy, but this is the truth. When I come in a situation, I think, how would my wife think about this? What would she do in this situation? Because I respect her, not just her views, but the way she conducts herself.
Yeah.
So I think to myself, let me stop for a minute. What would she do in it? And so I'm thinking, I'm replaying in my head, and I emulate what I think she would do because that's who I look up to.
This is your partner. This is why you're bound. Partnership, full partnership. This is what I tried to aim for in seeking a suit. Well, I've got a suitor now, but yeah, when you try to, somebody of a like mind, and the thing is, it's like she's always on your mind. When the decision, you're faced with a decision, you think of your partner. When you're faced with anything, you think of your partner. Why? Because it's like they're part of you essentially, and that's how it should feel. I believe anyway.
You said just there, they've now been replaced with
nonsense.
Shorter, quicker ways of trying to emulate the same thing.
Yeah.
You talked about communication. I imagine communication being actually literally talking on the phone and sitting where the phone was because there was no mobile, or there probably might be.
Correct.
There was only 5. I know it was only.
You got one of these, like
phone box.
Phone box. Yeah, right. But I'm saying, like, imagine the effort. I'm talking about. Imagine the effort that you would have had to put in to do these things.
Yeah.
And my thing is actually communication now is very different. You know, communication is actually via
everything.
a multitude of different apps, voice notes, quick text. There's no
And the level of effort we need to put in for things. Is
Correct.
different.
simple stuff.
apps. When you think about when I met my missus, again, similar age, I was 19. I think we started doing it when I was 19. Again, the same thing. I think you touched on it earlier, Uncle. Things that get pumped into from like your parents or from the older generation. For me, I held those things really dear to me, and I can say at a younger age, I was probably known a little bit as someone who's probably just too much of an old head on like young shoulders, or
I like
who's
that
just
though.
grumpy or moany and stuff like that. But if I think about it, some of those, you know, that type of life or certain things that I was doing felt right for me because actually, you know what? I'm seeing what my mum and dad are doing. I'm seeing that actually they've been married a certain amount of time, and actually that's what I wanted to go and do. So actually, when I was seeking a partner, that's what it was. It was looking at someone who had the same type of, and the opposites can attract, of course, but when you have that feeling, that's really what it boils down to. And like you said, you put effort into trying to, you know, seek more of it. You know, if I think about what my weekends were like at one point, it may not be great. Well, do you know what? I did go out there, but I'm talking about when I used to go and like see my missus down at the effort that was put in. You know, she lived nowhere near me at the time, and we spent like 2.5 years driving between London and where she was at uni. You know, that was, and I wanted to go and do it. My thing was actually that's what I wanted to go and do.
Of course,
you know, I was happy to spend my weekends there. You know, and there was even some times where I was down there, and she actually had she had a weekend job, and I was just there by myself with the rest of her uni friends and stuff like that.
Waiting
that was
for
still
her to come back, Stu.
Yeah.
Just waiting, just hanging around.
This is real stuff. This is effort.
You know,
effort is so valuable.
Yeah, it's effort. And when I think about it, you know, when we talk about like quality, like what did I think was quality at the time? It was actually saying, do you know what, this is someone who looks and sounds different to what I'm
Everyone else
experiencing. And you know what, when you see that, it stands out like a sore. It actually stands out like a sore thumb, and that's why I was saying a bit earlier, right? You know, if there are some people out there that feel like, you know, they've hit a wall, or if they've hit a bit of bad luck, or whatever it may be, it's a mixture of two things. Yeah, stay true to yourself, but at the same time, if it's that important to you, put yourself in the right position. You know, you're not going to find a partner staying at home. You know, you get some people
Absolutely.
saying, I can't find a partner in a rave. Well, I'll tell you what, I know some people who are married and they met in a rave, for example.
They're still raving.
You know, don't take some of those ideals, which are sometimes a bit dated, but just silly. You're not going to meet someone at a day party. Why not? You know, my thing is actually,
You never know.
invest their time to find out who that person is. You may find that actually that person who's having a bit of a great time for a friend's birthday, she actually might be the person. But again, if you're looking at what you see for the next half an hour when her song's on, it may not be what you think. But I tell you what, speak to her for enough time, spend some time with her for enough time.
Again, that's effort.
Yeah.
Putting the right effort on the right things.
With effort, and I think the effort now is just
Gone.
it's so short. It can,
The effort is a like on a photo. The effort is a comment.
Literally,
on a photo.
I hope she DMs.
bingo. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
literally.
just terrible.
Right, tell them what we said the other day. We was talking about this the other day about the like
What we
photo thing.
don't get. Sometimes I've fallen into it where I'm scrolling through Instagram and I've liked someone that I know's photo, and I feel in myself that I've spoken to that person for that day, or I've had an interaction with them for that day. I know in my head, but it feels like I had a little bit of an interaction, and I can just imagine what people who are fully ingrained in Instagram, how they feel. Like they're going through their feed, liking, commenting, and they feel like I've socialized today. I've done my part for society today, but you haven't.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing, Stuart? It's just touching back on the points you were making. And I just want to give a real life example. This is a female friend of mine who is in her early 40s now. 10 years ago, so Cara, she's roughly the same age as you. Mm-hmm. She had come out of a very bad relationship. She was single, she had no children. And I'll never forget, she said to me, she lived in Clapham. She said, we worked together, and she said, oh, I met this guy in this pub yesterday and blah, blah, blah. And she's a very funny person. The point about her is that even when life was really tough, she always exuded positivity. She always really gave out such great vibes. So she was a great person to be around. So she tells me she met this guy in this pub, and it was a very innocuous meeting. It just literally bumped into each other. Anyway, cut a long story short, they hitch up. 10 years down the line, they're now happily, blissfully married, 3 children, right? They've emigrated to Canada. He's Canadian. And I always had to talk about her because her life changed because she went to some pub in Clapham and she bumped into this guy, and she's a very chatty person. In terms of she had her positivity really made it easy for people to want to talk to her and be with her and get to know her and get to like and consequently get to love her. So while there are all these pressures out there, the point I think that you were making, Stu, about being positive and never giving up hope, because you just don't know. We just don't know where that person could be. And it literally, as you said, could be around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Be more accountable as well for who we're picking, the partners that we're choosing, because we're building up, a lot of the times we're building up these pictures of how things are in general through the experience we have. We can't help but do that as human beings. Mm-hmm. But when we have a bad experience, are we actually going back to the start and thinking, okay, what are the red flags that I saw before I went for the guy, or before I went for this girl? Mm-hmm. What are the things I can do going forward that might mitigate, me getting into this situation again? And I think, especially when I hear certain things from women, like there's no good men out there. You might be a big woman. You're responsible for your life. You can go out there and pick whoever you want to be with. You have a right to like what you like. Yeah. But when you keep on picking the same person over and over again and you're not seeing a pattern, you cannot say there's no men out there, because you keep on picking the same person over again. Yeah, and I think it's not just a women thing, but I hear it more from the women's side. It's like, well, there's no good men. There's no good men. That's it. Like I'm done. And it's like, but hold on, you pick who you pick.
Why do you think you don't hear it as much from men that there are no good women though?
Because
Honestly,
as
Cara,
you said,
Men do say it.
Just very, very quickly, we have a much wider pool.
Yeah, and I agree.
A 50-year-old man, but you could go and check a 35-year-old woman, a 30-year-old woman, and society doesn't go anything. That's not not too bad, is it? Now, not to say that a 50-year-old woman can't check a 30-year-old man, but let's just say it happens a lot less.
And I agree, and I think that's part of the problem as well. There's a smaller pool in that respect. Also, if I'm correct, London is the population of women is slightly higher.
Probably.
As well.
Probably.
I'm not sure how that sits globally anymore, but there was a time when
more women.
In the world there were more women. In terms of time as well, like time constraints that women face in terms of settling down, especially if they're consuming having children naturally.
Yeah.
It's a bigger deal, and I think that's where we start to lose a little bit more choice in terms of where men have more time and a larger pool to pick from.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're going to say the same as me in terms of the choice to settle down as well, whether they want to or not. Women, as a rule, seem to want to do it more and earlier than men. So that presents an issue as well.
Agreed. But then that goes back to one of the first statements I made regarding men and women.
The world changing, and we're not the same.
And we're not the same.
We are not the same.
We're not equal.
We bring different things to the table.
This one thing, this biological clock makes it so unequal, right? It makes it so unequal. But until, maybe nature or man decides to be able to change that, we have to learn to deal with that.
That's it for today. So thanks for tuning into Dads Divulge. We'd like you to like, share and subscribe on our content. Once again, thank you for all the support that we've had. We're enjoying the journey. If there's anything that you want us to touch on, follow us, comment, let us know, and that's it for us.
That's it. And on that note, we're out.